Welcome to a new edition of Are You Live? We are joined tonight by my very favorite. This is a big thing, big deal here. My very favorite person on Twitter. That's how big you are. That's a big deal, man. Not only that, like my very favorite person on political Twitter, and because political Twitter, to even have a favorite person on political Twitter is saying something, because political Twitter is made up of just jerks mostly. And, anyway, this man right here, Jon Gabriel, who is also the editor-in-chief of Ricochet.com and the host of the Conservatarians podcast, he just stands apart. He's got a Twitter feed that it doesn't matter that I agree with a lot of it. There's just like, you don't take politics and yourself nearly as seriously as the rest of people on political Twitter. Am I right, Jon?
Yeah, it would drive me absolutely more insane than I am if I took any of this crap seriously. I think I'm constitutionally unable to take myself seriously. And if I can't take myself seriously, how can you take Donald Trump or Joe Biden seriously? It's just right. It's way too large a mountain to climb. I can't handle that.
I know, but then you've devoted much of your life to like reading about this stuff too. So like, please explain that contradiction.
I think a lot of it for me is, and probably like a lot of your viewers and listeners, is focusing on policy. First off, I have all the correct ideas, and if everyone would follow my wisdom,
right,
pretty a utopia, I guess. But so I care about the policy, but the clowns who are in charge of promoting or enforcing or enacting the policy are really ridiculous people. I think for the start too, for anybody to say, you know what, I think I should run the free world. I know there's 300 something million people in America, but I think it's obvious that I should be controlling everything. You just have to have something wrong with you to even pursue that. I look at like a city council meeting or an HOA, I'm like, who the hell am I? I'm not going to do that. Right. So you have to be kind of off to begin with if you're even attracted to that position. So yeah, not taking it very seriously, understanding the whole concept of the tragic outlook on life, as Thomas Sowell would say, and just saying, hey, everything's going to be imperfect. It's going to be very messy. Here's what I think are good ways to live your life or to enact policy to be the best for the most people. But I know they're not going to pass it. So why get all hung up on it?
So here's the thing, though, Jon. When it comes to the presidency of the United States of America, this great country, I know that I was born for it. Okay, buddy?
Okay, Beto. Let's go skateboarding later.
I mean, when he said that, not only did he say it, but it was on the cover of Vanity Fair magazine, so that they saw it as this announcement of his own greatness rather than an announcement of his own megalomania. Right.
It's like something you'd see out of the Byzantine Empire with, I was born into the purple. I have been chosen by God to represent this empire. That's kind of his everyday thoughts, apparently.
I mean, so like, I have spent so much time trying to get inside the heads of all these people, these politicians, and I've been writing a lot about the history of foreign policy. And so I've been trying to get into the heads of the major foreign policy makers, looking at their childhoods, trying to figure out like why they ended up being these authoritarian jerks. This is sort of a family show. Well, it's a family show when you're on. That's what I was, because
they're total stinkers. Excuse my language.
They're poopy heads, basically.
Right.
I have some decent hypotheses, but especially with the newer crop, of the last few generations, like Beto O'Rourke, to actually believe, young man, that you were born to be president. That is a special kind of personality or maybe disorder, right? And
right.
I mean, how do you have any explanation for why there are some people like that and others aren't like that, and the most of us aren't?
I think, and I don't say this casually or even as a pejorative, I think it's a type of mental illness. I really do. I think you have to be off is my view on insanity is I think everybody, nobody is perfectly mentally healthy. We all have our quirks and weird ways. God knows I have all sorts of issues that I really need to work on one of these days. I got to check that out. But I just think you have to have a very strange personality to do this. And if you look through history, I'm a big student of history. Some of the craziest leaders ended up being the right person for the moment. Winston Churchill, colonialist, let's kill all the lesser people, basically. But he was needed during that few years or England wouldn't be saved. Lincoln, who they said had melancholy, some now say it was either depression or bipolar, maybe. His wife might have had bipolar. But he had such a grim view of life and dealing with so many losses and so many tragedies in his life. That personality prepared him for the grind of the Civil War. He would just detach himself, be stoic about it, just like, yep, another horrible day, just like every other day of my damn life. And he just went it day by day. And obviously, many disagree with what policies he took. But in a weird way, this kind of craziness ends up helping certain leaders and others turn up like Caligula.
Yeah. I got to turn off the enter chime here because people are making noise when they flock to you. A couple of thoughts about this. Yes, so I love that you went back into history and looked at those figures, those presidential figures and others with what looked to us like mental illness. A guy I have studied a whole lot and I've read a lot of his writing is John Adams. And when you read John Adams, like seriously read John Adams, you're struck by I would hope you're struck by two things because I don't see any other way to escape it. Brilliant mind, like apart from politics, whatever you think of the politics, brilliant mind and stone cold loco, like psycho. I mean, megalomania off the charts. I mean, he, when he was in his 20s, he was already imagining the plans for the whole world. He wanted America to be the new empire. He wanted to replace Rome and Britain as the great world empire. And he saw himself as the head of it. And he saw ways of managing personalities and direct and organizing society. He knew how Europe should be organized and Africa should be organized. It was just he had never been to these places. He had never met anybody from them who lived there, yet he had these elaborate plans for them. I think honestly, like if you took his writings from that time and you put them on a current psychoanalyst's couch, I mean, they would conclude that he needs to be institutionalized. Right. And it's like, just to look at a world map and to think that you have some responsibility for all of it. That isn't that like in the DSM somewhere? Like, isn't that like, shouldn't it be?
It has to be. And you look at, non-political figures, Isaac Newton, obviously incredibly brilliant, revolutionized science, herald of the Enlightenment. You get him talking on religion or spiritualism, as he would call it, beyond loco, occultism, and he was all into numerology, and he had these crazy ideas about how all religions follow these crazy numerical patterns and worked into the astrology of the moment and, alchemy. He was into all that stuff, but his particular oddness was fantastic for science, and we all benefited out of it.
Yeah,
so, it's just.
But he didn't he didn't want to save me. Like Newton didn't,
no,
you know what I mean? It's that psychosis. That's the thing that's, I mean, all the great artists all had mental health issues, so that's I mean, I love them. They're great. We love them, right?
Yeah.
That's what made them sort of individualists. I'm talking about the collectivist psychos and,
right.
and who of course, just by coincidence, always place themselves at the head of the collective.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, that's when you step back and think it is really like a shocking thing to think that there are actually, because I've never known anybody personally. I don't think, not really. Beto is actually a student at Columbia when I was at Columbia, a grad student, but we didn't cross paths. But like, I mean, some of my students may have thought this, but they didn't betray it in their classes. But to actually feel responsible, right, for people you will never meet, who have nothing to do with you, who live, across the world, to feel responsible for them and to feel like what they need. like, as you know, as a 19-year-old, as a 50-year-old, as a 90-year-old, with 5 PhDs, I don't care. Like, that's it's something's wrong. You know, it's like,
Right.
right?
Well, I think when I was 16, I did know what was best for everybody on earth. And if no one understood my genius, my dad didn't love me enough, and I just
Yeah.
slammed the bedroom door. But by the time I was 17 and a half, I had figured out I was full of crap, and that proceeded accordingly year by year.
Yeah. All right. It's this, like, I'm endlessly fascinated. Same goes for like the private sector. I mean, like,
Hmm.
I'm a CEO of a company. It happens to be, you know, this big. Even that, it's just, all it does is tell me, holy crap, being a CEO of a major corporation, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemies. You know,
Right,
being
right.
president of the United States, it's just the responsibility. I don't, and the fact that, like, a lot of those guys and women, you know, get to a level of wealth where they never need to work ever again and continue to be the
Mm-hmm.
CEO and to be hated by, you know, because of that, because by hundreds or sometimes thousands or sometimes millions of people. And
Hmm.
that's also a kind of personality, I think, that's similar to politicians, right? Like,
Yeah,
something.
I think completely. And anytime I've worked in several different private sector companies before I ever started ranting on Twitter or the internet. But most of the CEOs were politicians. You would have the number two
Mm,
person who is the enforcer, who no one liked, who is just, you know, he's the guy firing people. You would usually have a number three person who was kind of the technician, the engineer of the group, you know, how to keep everything running and going in the same direction. But the CEO is glad handing and always has a smile on his face and talks to Toastmasters. And that tends to be, for large corporations, it's a very political skill set. And
yeah.
we see that in my state of Arizona. Our governor now was the CEO of Cold Stone Creamery, and actually many years ago I ran graphic design for them, and I didn't know his politics and he didn't know mine. But yeah, he's the same guy that he was when he was a CEO, and it's just an odd little skill set thing.
Okay.
One that I absolutely do not have.
Okay. So if our hypothesis is correct here, what we're saying about our society, John, is that we have structured it in such a way that psychos have all the power.
Yeah, pretty much. And I smile at that. Once I've embraced this mentality, I'm like, oh, wow, we are kind of screwed. Might as well have fun on the way out, because it's always been this way. And again, kind of looking at the big sweep of history, at least we have more freedom now than you did as a Roman citizen or a peasant in, you know, I don't know, 1000 AD in the UK. It's just right now we have more freedom, and that's what leads me to believe, hey, why don't you psychos just mind your own damn business and figure
Mm,
stuff out and stop being Karens and stop telling me exactly how I need to live my life,
mm,
because I'll probably figure it out and it'll be imperfect and you won't like everything I do, and that's cool because I don't like what you're doing. So
right.
and that's kind of almost like this laissez-faire perspective on personal behavior. If someone else, I don't know, I don't have any tattoos. Almost everyone I know has a tattoo because it makes them individualistic and they think I'm the freak. I'm cool with that. I don't happen to have one because it's, to me, it's like, if I had to wear, I don't really like this shirt, but if I really love this shirt and I had to wear it every day for my life, you know, it's not my thing. And if you do it, awesome. And I appreciate their art. Well, some of their art. Some of the guys I knew back in the Navy got drunk and yeah, didn't pay enough money. But yeah, I just, if whatever you need to do to live your life and to be happy and to mess it up and to take a course correction midway through and another course correction, knock yourself out, because I'm trying to figure it out too.
So that's the Tarian in your conservatarianism,
Yeah.
right? That's
Right,
the
right.
libertarian party. So before we get into that though, so you just used a bad word. You just used the K word, Karen. Uh,
I'm
and,
sorry.
and so,
I've
which is
been
a
canceled.
good segue into, you know, I haven't, I mean, I can kind of guess, but I would like to hear, I'm sure a lot of people like to hear your general take on this whole pandemic quarantine mess, blah, blah, blah. What's your, you know, where do you stand on?
Well, since this will be recorded and released on YouTube, I want to say that I am strongly in opposition to coronavirus. I don't like it, not a fan.
Right.
But in general, the lockdown, and you can kind of understand locking down for a couple weeks, but I think any political leader, what they don't seem to recognize, and we're seeing this in different parts of the country that are a lot slower to open back up, to reopen. I always kind of laugh when you hear a governor say, we're allowing these places to open again. I'm like, who the hell are you to allow or disallow?
Right.
I'm going to do it.
Right.
And as for me, I thought the lockdown would probably be over April 30. And a couple weeks before then, I said, well, the lockdown is over for me on April 30. And I don't really care what the government does. And they decided to extend it a week or two. And now everything's supposed to be open up on May 15, but it's over for me. And most of it is just almost like a psychological thing. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm not waving flags. I'm not marching on the Capitol with a comically large assault rifle, because I don't care. If you want to stay locked up, man, stay that way. Because I don't like hanging out with people that much. I love having the roads to myself, and I want to go out on a hike by myself. That's great. If you want to stay locked up, great. But you kind of have to make up your own minds on these. And what a lot of governors, like Michigan's gotten a lot of flack for this, Governor Whitmer, but it's all about the consent of the governed. People are doing the lockdown because they have chosen to do a lockdown. Governments are a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. People were abandoning restaurants, bars, major social events. Mainly they were. A couple people didn't. But most people were abandoning that about a week before Arizona declared a lockdown. And before the lockdown was officially ended, every time I go out, there's more traffic on the freeways, there's more people out and about, there are fewer people with masks. And the politicians, what their goal should be is not controlling the people, because they can't, they never will, but is to pretend that they're leading the parade. When they see the parade marching, deciding to go left instead of right, the good politician runs in front and shakes the baton and says, see, I'm leading everyone this direction. Well, everybody already decided to go to that direction to begin with. And you're basically a lagging indicator, following the people, not leading the people or controlling the people. It's just impossible. And states like Arizona, and I'm sure several others, they said, okay, we have these lockdown orders. We are closing down these businesses, but it's been pushed as a voluntary thing. You don't have cops breaking into hair salons and things like that. It's just, look, we don't want to enforce this, because if they start enforcing it, it's going to be a nightmare. Like we've seen videos all over the place online where the poor, woman out with her child, say, and she doesn't have a mask on, and cops, throwing her to the ground because she isn't following it. And for some reason, most of those videos are minority people.
Yeah.
When people are gathering in Central Park,
Yep.
and they look like they stepped right off of a reality show on MTV or something. Those people are fine, but it's usually the poorer, the more oppressed people. Those are the ones who are just getting hammered with physical violence. And it's like, yeah, that's why you don't enforce these things.
Right on. Sarima, you got a question? Sarima.
Be a huge backlash from small businesses in terms of lawsuits due to the loss of revenue? And in your mind, would it be justified that would happen if this all turns out to be a huge overreaction?
The litigation associated with this lockdown, it will be endless. We're going to be hearing about this for a decade. I know I used to work a few years back at Goldwater Institute. They've already initiated a lawsuit because they're like, the government does not have the right to do this. And a lot of these politicians, that's one thing, again, to the credit of a state like Arizona, which our governor has some libertarian tendencies, let's say. He's definitely a Republican, a party member, but he doesn't like occupational licensing. Even before any of this happens, he's tried to cut that. So he has some good instincts on some of that stuff, but they were making it up as they went. And that's, I think, why he tried to say, look, I recommend you do this, but there was no law passed. There wasn't enforcement going on, because these people are going to be exposed to so many lawsuits. It's just going to be bewildering, and they're going to be locked up in the courts forever, because this isn't something America's experienced a pandemic on this scale since, 1918. And back then, Wilson didn't really care much about due process and enforcing constitutional rights, because he was an evil SOB. But yeah, the lawsuits, and they're going to be coming from all over. It's not like a right v left thing. It's everybody. And you have so many people who are upset. I'm kind of a coffee snob, and I have all these little independent coffee houses. Some of them opened like literally 3 months before the lockdowns began. And so I've been doing my best trying to help them out and things. And you talk to them and they smile and they're present and they're pleasant and they're thankful for your business. But you just see this kind of hollow fear in their eyes, you know, and it just like breaks your heart. It's just like, what the hell am I doing? I just, you know, I've been a barista for several years, and I quit this engineering job I had before it, and I threw everything into this business, and immediately we're closed down for 2 months. In Arizona, spring and fall are the big, that's when businesses tend to be booming. In the summer, all the people with money flee because we're living on the surface of the sun. And so these people have been hurt bad. They have been hurt really badly, and they're going to be lawsuits.
I know it firsthand because I do work in the restaurant industry. I'm a chef. And the first thing that I said was small businesses are going to get hit hard by this. I believe that was literally the first thing I said when they decided to shut down the arena that I work at. And that was because I've been in it for almost a decade, and I know how much it costs to run a restaurant. This idea of social distancing, like 6 feet apart in a restaurant, they make a lot of their revenue from beverages. I mean, and is it worth it to even be open if you're only going to allow a handful of people in every night? Because you still have to pay your staff, and the overhead is so ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I actually hope that they do end up putting in a lot of lawsuits just to send a message, if anything, that, you know, you can't really take this to an authoritarian level and think that it's going to be okay. And then also set up the precedent for possibly doing this again if, you know, COVID does decide to come back in the fall or whatever the hell they're saying now, you know? So.
Right.
Yeah. And then you have the health issues going on, all the cancer screenings that aren't being done. I'm supposed to get, since I'm, you know, I'm officially
deaths of despair now, as well.
Yeah. Right. It's like my mom and her dad both died of colon cancer. So they say every so many years you should get a colonoscopy. Well, that's been put off for 3 months so far. And it should be fine for me, but someone who's 60 and maybe smoked for 20 years or something, they're just saying, oh, I'll put it off. Or my heart is really, you know, I'm losing my breath and my arm's tingling every once in a while, but I can't go to the emergency room right now. I'll just try to self-medicate, have an extra beer at night, and hopefully calm my nerves a little bit. And also, too, locking everybody in their homes, you know, when I talked about mental illness, that's why I did not use it as an aspersion.
Yeah.
Everybody in my family has something going on.
Yeah.
And then you take kids and lock them in the house for 3 months straight. It's crazy.
Right. And especially if you come from a bad home and now you're forced to be stuck in that situation. Yeah, the statistics right now are going through the roof. Deaths of despair and everything. And I mean, it was kind of inevitable. I mean, if you pay attention at least a little bit, you would kind of think that this is not natural. And that would just be the logical conclusion, you know? So anyway, thank you for, I didn't want to take up all your time. Thank you so much for answering my question.
That was great. That was great. Except you made me really mad though. I'm just
sorry.
I'm furious about this, and you just stoked my rage. Today I was getting even more angry because I looked at a map of the United States and all the states that are opening and all the states that are still closed, and it's like, good old California and about 4 other of, you know, the most bourgeois, liberal, blue statey kind of places, you know, were the ones remaining closed, and it was just infuriating. And then Jon, speak to this because you're like a journalist actually. Am I right? I just tweeted this just a couple hours ago. Am I right that there's been almost no reporting on what's happened in all the states that have reopened, like Georgia and Tennessee and Oklahoma, right? I just don't I don't even know. I hear like anecdotes that the numbers have improved in those states since they reopened.
Yeah, they have.
But
Axios did Axios did a chart, and that is the only place I saw reporting on it, saying they were comparing weekly numbers. And they said in the past 2 weeks, Florida and Georgia, who have been, oh my gosh, they're murdering their citizens, cases have gone down. And the problem we're having, the most severe lockdown kind of states, tend to be the ones with the worst response to this, like throwing people with COVID into nursing homes. My dad, rest his soul, passed away last summer, but he was in like memory care for, 8 years, something like that. And it was just like, if he was still in that situation, I would have been totally freaking out. And they're just like, yeah, we know that you have COVID-19, get in the nursing home where you're, crammed in with a bunch of other people. So I'm sure the workers are exposed to disease, and those people are friggin' angels on earth that deal with these people and help these people day after day. So yeah, it's infuriating.
We got to get somebody on here to defend the lockdowns. We've had probably like 8 straight guests now, all of whom are at least, right? Am I right, guys? Harshly critical of the lockdowns, but of varying degrees. But like I've heard, in other podcasts, and I see all over Twitter people defending them and calling for greater extending the lockdowns. Right. And I need to hear from them. I mean, I don't know. I mean, actually did invite Jack Goldsmith on, who's this, he's a friend of mine, sort of, who's a law professor, who's in the Bush administration. He wrote this article in which he argued for, I don't know if you saw this in The Atlantic, arguing for the Chinese model in America, which in particular, no, but mostly on speech, mostly about speech, mostly speech. It's cracking down on speech is the reason that China contained the virus faster. So he's saying that therefore we should do the same thing. It was like, wow. Anyway, he's a nice guy. And I like Jack a lot, but he was he said, I've never gotten so much hate in my life. So I'm not prepared to come into an unknown territory and talk about this, but I'll try to get someone. All right. AJ, you got a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'm gonna defend the lockdown without truly defending the lockdown. I think
AJ, you're out of here. Security?
Right. That's the worst.
Silence.
Go
ahead.
So I think we're in sort of the worst situation, meaning that like if we were completely locked down, like you can look at graphs of the virus, and if you completely lock the country down because you're actually like an authoritarian military state like China, the cases steeply decline. But if you like half-ass it, like we're doing, we have like both the worst of the virus as well as the worst of the restrictions. So being lukewarm on lockdown is less effective, but also just less desirable by either metric on the left or the right, from my perspective.
But is that an argument? Sorry,
like if we were going to lockdown, we should have locked down more.
Right, but it sounds like you're saying. But are you arguing that it should be either the Chinese model or the Swedish model?
Right.
Not anything in between.
Not in between. Yeah.
Okay, I see. John, over to you.
I am of Finnish extraction, so this pains me to say it, but yay Sweden, skål, all that good stuff.
Right.
Let's do it that way. And again, I just think so much of it is based on, especially America, you have to suit yourself to the society you're in, and we are an individualistic society. We are founded on, at least in theory, fundamental freedoms, and I think people figured out for themselves, there wasn't, people were buying masks and hoarding masks when the WHO was saying, nope, they're ineffective, never wear them. For some reason, they're hoarding toilet paper. I still haven't figured that one out. Right. But people stopped going to restaurants before any governmental decrees came out.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, AJ, what'd you say?
I just said yeah.
Oh, okay.
Agreed.
And I think too is we have politicians who are all about cutting the baby in half too. You're always going to get lukewarm measures. I'm the kind of person who sees the national debt and it's like, okay, well, let's stop spending for a couple of years, pay off some of this. No. Let's what we're going to do is we're going to work on having the deficit first. That's really important. It's like, no, we're completely broke. We're completely in debt. So half measures is their bread and butter, and that's how they get reelected, unfortunately.
I think cutting the baby in half is the perfect metaphor for the situation they created here.
Yeah.
I'm all for cutting babies in half. I don't know. That's basically that's my main position, my main policy in my platform.
First, legalize heroin for the babies, then got a nap. So.
Right. Well, legalize heroin and make sure it's in vending machines that children can use,
Right,
that are
right.
low enough so they can put the coins in. Uh, I'm sympathetic to AJ's argument about this. And I might even extend it to sort of public health generally. I have sort of thought, well, when it comes to like healthcare in general, you know, either fully socialize the damn thing and let's see if it works. Like California was going to secede when Trump was elected, and they were going to institute, basically socialized healthcare here. And I was like, please go for it. Great. We'll see if it works. And it might. I don't know. Maybe. Um, or let's go full market, which we never have anywhere, right? Which is what I favor, but let's try them for God's sake, instead of, like, as AJ was saying, like mucking about in the middle and creating kind of the worst of all possible worlds. And that's kind of what I think the American healthcare system is now. It's like the worst of all possible worlds, right? So like, we neither have universal coverage, and it's expensive, and it's bad for almost every way, except for like the high levels of innovation. That's very good. But anyway, I mean, is that, what do you think, John? Like, is that a decent argument?
Yeah. I think and that's like the argument behind federalism. That's why I've always been a big fan. I am great, and as much as conservatives or even libertarians, but complain about California, I'm like, look, man, raise the hell out of your taxes. I don't care, because that's the thing. If it works, then I've been wrong my whole life, and I'd rather know that than sit around in ignorance. And if Texas wants no income tax, well, we'll see if that works. We'll find out which works best. And I don't understand this desire to. We've seen it throughout the Trump administration. Trump is an evil monster dictator. Oh, good. Why don't we devolve power out of DC and let Governor Newsom make decisions? No. We can't have that. Everybody needs to abide by our rules. I'm like, no, if you want to let your freak flag fly and raise up a red flag in Sacramento, knock yourself out. And that's the thing too, is I could be completely wrong. Maybe what I believe isn't the best way to go about it, and we should have this more communitarian system. And maybe I'm more right than wrong, and a model that would be kind of like Hong Kong or my ideal libertarian seasteading platform, just, balls out capitalism start to finish. Maybe that would be better. Maybe something in between would. And I want people, like you're saying, to try that out. I want to see what works.
I think the greatest moment in American political history was for about a 2-week period during the quarantine, just a few weeks ago, when most of the left, it seemed to me, was calling for Donald Trump, the fascist, Nazi, racist, dictator, devil Trump, to nationalize industries and to impose martial law.
Yeah. Why aren't you sending the National Guard down the streets of Brooklyn right now, you dictator? Why won't you do it?
Under your authority.
Insane.
Under your authority,
right.
we want you, Mussolini, to invade our city streets, and to take, and also Donald Trump, who we think is also the biggest idiot on earth. We want you to run the entire economy. We want you to determine like what is produced and how much of it, and and what the prices are. I mean, that was, and people on the left, this is what their criticism. Right. This is what the left was saying. Their criticism of Trump was that he wasn't doing that. He wasn't becoming Mussolini fast enough.
Yeah, and I thought we would have maybe a little chance at a teachable moment here when Trump was first elected, is just like, awesome, let's limit government. Let's strip away executive power. Let's make sure Congress has far more say like they're supposed to. No. We just want our guy in, then it'll be utopia. It's like, no, they're all idiots. So.
Well, I know so the thing about John, which might surprise you guys, he's a big Joe Biden fan. So we can talk about that. I know it's going to be upsetting for some of you, but
I mostly just like smelling hair. So it's a commonality that we have.
I mean, John, sometimes I got to say, it's a little gross, like the way you talk about Joe Biden. I'm like, dude, is this like a little homoerotic? Like, because you love the guy so much. Like, what do you? All right, we'll get into your love of Biden in a second. Just kidding. He does not love Biden at all. Although I think you probably don't hate him as much as I do.
No,
You probably
I don't really.
well, you don't
My
hate
whole
people.
thing too. Yeah, I don't have the energy for it. I'm too lazy to. It stirs up too much emotions that I need to take a nap.
I need you to hate Biden. I'm gonna teach you to hate. By the end of this session, I'm gonna have you like more like tense, you know, in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
I
about
think he's mostly just kind of like a Trump, an absolute idiot buffoon, and I cannot believe these are the two main people running for office. He's just an incompetent idiot who's been wrong on every damn issue there is
yeah.
to be wrong on. So.
He's a little worse than that. Okay, we'll get back to him. In a second. All right. So Vesna, you got a question or a comment? You have the. I've never seen a camera
Yeah.
angle like yours either. It's like I see your keyboard really well. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, that's because I'm
It's all right.
yeah. So my question was, do you have any thoughts about the plandemic
Oh,
phenomenon?
oh, Jesus. What do you mean? Are you getting conspiratorial now?
Oh, well, probably, but
It's okay.
but what I mean is um, the by the phenomenon, I mean the fact that somebody put up a video with a bunch of more or less stupid stuff in it, mixed up with some true stuff, so that people can't tell the difference and figure that it's probably all true. And then all the social media platforms took it down, and then people like the biggest comment that I saw on YouTube was, there must be something in there that they don't want us to see.
I haven't heard of
Are you
this.
familiar with this
No, John.
phenomenon?
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
this?
I know about it. I
Plandemic.
haven't seen the video, but yeah, it's from what I
I
understand.
saw it as
that's the thing.
fascinating.
Mhm.
Fascinating if you want to study how propaganda is built.
What is
Right,
the video? What's the
right.
video? Go. What happened? John, what
It's
happened?
a video that, as I understand it, again, I did not see it. It was actually pulled down because I wanted to watch it. People are talking about it. I
I
want
have
to know
the
what
link.
they're talking about.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'll
Yeah.
put the link in the chat if you
Okay.
want. I
Yeah.
put the link on Facebook, and this and my new agey woo woo friend said, yeah, right on, that's now, because this is important. And my lefty friends said, Vesna, take this down because it's got false information. And to both of them, I said, if you see, what I said was, I'm like, what I'm offended about is that it's, yes, Layla, that's how I got turned on to the phenomenon. Sorry, somebody just chatted. What I said, what I'm offended, what I had said was, if you want to make up your own mind, here, download this and share it so that you can decide for yourself.
Okay. Put the link in the chat right now. And then
Will
John,
do.
and then John, tell me, like, you haven't even seen the video yet?
I have not, no.
Oh, what have you heard about it?
I've heard that, and it's just, again, secondhand sources who are very skeptical of it, somewhat conspiratorial theory of what the virus is, and it's about governmental control, and it's all planned out, basically. I think Bill Gates is involved, maybe George Soros. I don't know how far it
Fauci
goes.
is involved.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. And my only concern about it is that YouTube pulled it down. When you try to hide these things,
And Facebook.
they bubble up and they gain strength. If I'm told, okay, I'm walking through a park and there's a park bench and it has a sign on it that says wet paint, I'm going to touch it. When you tell me do not do this, all I can think of doing is doing that thing.
Right.
And that's what happens when you censor information. And basically, it's a cliche, but fight free speech with more free speech. If it's so transparently wrong and ludicrous, then make a video saying, oh, look how dumb this is and how they got it wrong. And then the people can decide. But when you try to silence one side of the debate, it's never going to be a good thing. It's just, all it does is make people think, like you're saying, ooh, there must have been something in there they didn't like. It would be like censoring, I know some organizations were censoring Jeffrey Epstein memes. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. And I, of course, had a great time with that just because it was a funny meme for a couple days at least. But trying to censor these things, all you're doing is giving them power. It's telling your kid, whatever you do not sneak in and drink my wine coolers in the fridge. They're very delicious, but don't you touch those. Okay, well, I'm going to be hitting the vodka in a few minutes. It's like, can you go to bed? Because when you tell people don't do X, all they want to do is X. It's like telling someone, whatever you do, don't think of an elephant. That's the first thing you think of. So I just think it's foolish for these tech companies to try to be enforcers on what capital T truth is. Let the market decide. Let people decide.
Okay, now we're going to move to our meeting of the Illuminati. So I'm going to announce right now we're going to the private session. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to join RU Live sessions, become a member, go to renegadeuniversity.com and join at any level. And now we will go to the private session. Hang on one second.